Welcome everybody to another edition of WCW 2004 here in TEW 2020, and as you've seen by the thumbnail, it's not the usual edition of WCW 2004. As always, with this series, what I do is I take over for the AI for the WWE in the last couple weeks, heading towards the big two shows, SummerSlam and WrestleMania, just to make it make sense. Because even though, like in theory, the AI can book a quote unquote better show, I want to show that it actually makes sense, puts up some stories, puts them over some people, creates new things, creates new stars, creates narratives. So at least, like, because we all know, like, we all love this game, but the AI can be a little wacky at times. So this just sets things up and moves things forward. Like, again, and I do try to book the show as it actually should be. Like, I don't, like, trash the show so my WCW can win easier. It's it's an actual thing where I try to do my best to actually, put over everybody and create a great WrestleMania. But anyway, before we actually get to that, of course, September channel census. Again, I started this last week. I'm going to continue it through this week and then I'll be done. I just want to get people's actual views on things, what series you do like, what series you do like, what you want to see more of, what you want to see less of, etc., etc., etc. Obviously, I'll be, I'm not going to be totally a slave to what people want, but some series I'm going to continue no matter what until things really go into crapper. But I want to see what people want to see more of, want to see less of. It's a short census, it's 4 or 5 questions. It'll take you 5 minutes maybe, unless you really write a long comment at the end. But go ahead, click on the link in the channel description, and follow it, fill it out, and let me know what you think. Anyway, it's now time for WrestleMania 20, where it all begins again. Alright, and now we're starting out with the actual pre-show match, as it's the pre-show battle royal involving a bunch of people. So let's just go over the people who aren't over, who I just didn't want to give, any spots to. So, out of everybody, we have Albert, Blue Boy, Blue Meanie, Bubba Ray Dudley, Crash Holly, D'Lo Brown, Devon Dudley, Funaki, Hardcore Holly, Jerry Lynn, Just Incredible, Kevin Nash, Mark Henry, Matt Classic, Colt Cabana, Matt Hardy, Nick Densmore, Spike Dudley, Steven Richards, Test, Viscera, and X-Pac. But in a terrible pre-show match, Kevin Nash won the Battle Royal in 9:57. The members of the Final Four were X-Pac, Funaki, and Matt Hardy, with X-Pac being the final elimination. And Mark Henry gets the most eliminations over the course of the match, and this gets a 62. Yeah, just again, make so people aren't pissed off being left off WrestleMania. And of course, we got 20,000 people at Madison Square Garden. And now moving forward, we have the opening video, which is, again, basically the same opening video as we saw at the first, at the actual WrestleMania 20, whole, history of WrestleMania, except obviously it's focusing on Austin, Randy Orton, Kurt Angle, Shawn Michaels, Brock Lesnar, etc. And it doesn't end with the thing where where Vince is standing beside Shane and the kid. It's Vince and probably Stephanie and maybe Shane's kid, but we don't notice it's Shane's kid, all that fun stuff. But it gets an 84 because it's still a good solid thing to start off with, and then we go to our opening match, which is an about that Super Wrestling and Great Heat. Chris Benoit and Chris Jericho defeated Scott Hall and William Regal in 12:16 when Benoit pins Regal after a Dragon Suplex. Ouch. This gets a 77. And again, how this match was set up is basically Benoit and Regal previously fought over the IC title throughout the fall and winter. Jericho lost multiple world title shots against Lesnar, so he came down to help his buddy. And Hall and Regal have been in a stable together for basically most of the year. But a big win for Benoit and Jericho, as Benoit does a lot less than he does in real life, but what can you do? But this gets a 77, Regal gets a 78, Hall gets an 81, Jericho gets a 90, and Benoit gets a 90. Fun times. And post-match, Benoit and Jericho celebrate to a 74. Good stuff. Then we have our next big thing, as we have a decent match. Al Snow and Radicals defeat Disturbia, which is Raven, Bradshaw, and Farouk in 8:14. When Al Snow pins Farouk with a snowplow after Bradshaw wiped out Farouk, quote unquote, by accident. So what happens here is, as Al Snow gets out of the way of a Bradshaw run, Bradshaw wallops Farouk with clothesline from hell. Al Snow picks up Farouk, hits the snow puck. It's the 1-2-3. This gets a 67. Basically, Disturbia has been on a downward trend ever since Austin turned face after last year's SummerSlam, I believe. And so they just become a mid card act, and this is just the end of that. We're also known the Radicals were basically just mid card or mid carders. Get the big win as Malenko gets a 63, Saturn gets a 61, Snow gets a 60, Farouk gets a 67, Bradshaw gets a 70, and then Raven gets a 71. Raven was injured, so, not the worst thing, but just a solid win for the baby faces. And then what happens here is, of course, after this, after the show, Bradshaw just kills Farouk with another clothesline from hell as Raven is still, sort of basically, on the outside convalescing, and he just walks out after, basically, yelling at Farouk that it's all over. So this gets a 63. And not quite yet. Oh, right, we still can get Farouk. So we can turn him babyface. And then we move forward. So actually, as we get our first VTR, as it's Leviathan versus Kane in a casket match, which gets a 70 overall. And basically what happens here is we go over the history, basically Leviathan making his debut with Ariel Belmont at SummerSlam attacking Kane. In real life, the game did not book them great, but we're ignoring that. And this is basically the last challenge of Leviathan against Kane, as they've been, brawling, doing spooky stuff, and, basically attacking each other. And now Kane, who, is a former world champion, but who lost the title to Lesnar at last year's SummerSlam after beating Angle for it, is now facing the huge challenge of this monster Leviathan, who has wrecked shop in the WWE since he made his debut. And then after the VTR, we have Leviathan's entrance with Ariel Belmont, which gets a 60 as he comes down the ringside to the boos of the crowd. And then it's time for the casket match between Leviathan and Kane. And yeah, okay. So, what can you do? I mean, again, I've been trying to push Kane hard when I can, even though the game simply refuses to do anything with it. What happens here is, just a simple, brawl, power match, but Leviathan is the bigger man, is more powerful man, and he just destroys Kane finally, hitting the big, power bomb of doom, getting the 1-2-3. Not getting the 1-3, hitting the power bomb of doom, rolling Kane in the casket, and winning the match. This gets a 61. Leviathan sustained a cracked ribs. That's unfortunate. Kane gets a 61. Leviathan gets a 58. And then post-match, I see that. Leviathan basically brings Kane's casket to the sort of the entrance and sets it on fire. So this gets a 66, as this basically breaks off Kane for a bit. And I'll put him on vacation. But yeah, and if this doesn't get Leviathan over and the game doesn't push him any better, well, so be it, But gotta do it, just to see what it'll actually do. Okay, and then next up we've got Kevin Kelly trying to catch up with Bradshaw, who is now wearing a 10-gallon hat, is wearing a suit instead of his former, acolyte gear, and is heading out to a limbo. Kevin Kelly tries to catch up with him and, get an explanation and says, I've been stuck with those zealots for a while, but while they've been stuck doing nothing, I've been making money on the stock market, and now I'm a rich, successful businessman, and I'm doing things on my own from now on. So yes, we get full-on Bradshaw. Yeah. And this gets to 65, so I'll just get in. I guess I figured, in real life, it's time to do a change and see how the game books him as a heel on his own. But yeah, fun times. And then we get our next match, as in a bout that had great wrestling and good heat, Molly Holly defeated Trish Stratus in the 804 by pinfall the Molly go round, as Molly Holly makes defense number 2 of her women's title. This gets a 77. Molly Holly gets a 74. Trish Stratus gets a 90. Basically, this is your typical women's match setup. Molly Holly won the title off Terry. Trish Stratus, wants her title. This is still heel bitch Trish Stratus. But Molly Holly is the volume babyface, and she gets the win here. Match was, of course, rated on eye candy, because of course it would be. No stripping or anything, but just your basic, slightly better than average Divas match, which gets a 77, because rated on, eye candy. And post-match, Molly Holly celebrates to a 71. So, good times. And next up, we have a video setting up the DDP Randy Orton match for the IC title. as basically, puts it as a story of, Randy Orton, rising up the ranks, earning his stripes, beating X-Pac at SummerSlam, then getting his ass kicked, but, rising to the occasion versus Kurt Angle over the fall. Quick snip of him beating Matt Hardy via countout for the European title, and then it shows him getting the huge big wins in basic consecutive weeks, first beating Kevin Nash, then Raven, and the second one making him being added to the three-way match at No Way Out for the IC title, and then he wins the IC title at No Way Out, and then basically it shows, DDP coming out and saying, he's wants a shot at the title at WrestleMania. Randy Orton agrees, and that's basically, the setup. Nothing too fancy, but just a face versus face off, because Randy Orton is still a face. Like, this is still young undercard rising to the top babyface, because if you noticed, there's no John Cena here. Cena's, and I'll go over this when I go over things overboard, but basically, Cena's still in developmental basically, Cena was out on the Indies for a while, but then he got finally signed to the WWE near the end, basically the last day or the next to last day of the year of 2003. So he's not overall, so he's not around at all. So basically, I'm doing this as a game. Basically, WF is setting up Orton as the new guy, and this is sort of like Orton's setup match versus DDP. And the VTR itself gets a 62. And then, in the match itself, in a good match, Randy Orton defeats DDP in 12:03 by pinfall with, well, it'll soon be called the RKO, but, what happens here is basically, DDP looks like he's going to the Diamond Cutter. Orton pushes him off, slides, ducks under a DDP attack, and then hits a Diamond Cutter of his own, but it's slightly different. Basically, it's the RKO, and gets the 1, 2, 3 to retain the Intercontinental title at WrestleMania. This gets a 73, Orton gets a 71, DDP gets a 77, really good stuff, as DDP, fails at Mania, and Orton rises to the top. And post-match, Orton celebrates to a 74. Okay, and now it's time for what will be by far the longest video package, as it's the setup for the McMahon family war. As you can see, there's lots of people there, and it'll take a minute to put this all over. So, as you may remember, basically, in the game, Triple H cheated on Stephanie McMahon with Lita in February 2003. They didn't fire Triple H or anything, and they actually continue to push it well. So I, push it as it's a professional relationship, but obviously in storyline it became a thing. So we had the Kwik War at SummerSlam 03, if you remember, where it was Triple H and Nash versus Hall and HBK, and after that, he lost a 4-way with Jericho and Ango at No Mercy for the title. He beat Mick Foley at Survivor Series, who came to defend the McMahon's honor after he, cut some heel promos. And then, Shane, who is a, occasional wrestler here, came back and challenged Triple H at the first Raw of the year. Triple H basically kicked his ass at that first Raw of the year. And then Shane basically eventually turned on his family to join Triple H along with Lita. And then a deal was made. Originally, it was going to be a tag match of Vince and Stephanie versus Triple H and Shane. And through various machinations, it became a 6-man where it was Triple H, Shane, and Lita on one side. And then it was going to be Vince, Stephanie, mystery partner. Then Vince, bowed out. And he came the Big Show, who came in as, the ace in the hole for the McMahons. And then finally, on the last Raw before WrestleMania, Rock made his return as a 6-man, and that was your final setup. Rock, Stephanie McMahon, and The Big Show versus Shane McMahon, Triple H, and Lita. Loser of the fall leaves WWE. This gets a 90. The McMahon Family War video gets a 93. So, fun times. Then we have the actual match, which is a complete clusterfuck. Let's be honest. What would that be anything else? So, in a bout that had great heat and decent wrestling, Big Show, The Rock, and Stephanie McMahon defeated Triple H, Shane McMahon, and Lita in 11:45. When Stephanie McMahon pinned Lita during the match, Vince McMahon also ran and attacked Triple H. So, let's just go over what happened here, okay? Triple H was held back by the chaotic nature of the match. That makes sense. Flow of the match, workers no involvement. Triple H benefited from a hot new move. Chaos of the match helped hide Stephanie. Match got the crowd buzzing. Lita got a 71, Shane got an 81, Triple H got a 92, Steph got a 70 with limited involvement, Rock got a 91, Big Show got an 84. So, here's how I imagine sort of the finish of this match happening. So, it's of course a wild, like, you know, it only goes 11 minutes, like I said, but it's just wackiness and over the top from the start. So, you know, eventually there's a rough bump. Everything is going wild. It's a 6-way battle. It looks like Lita and Triple H are going to take out Stephanie. So, you know, Triple H has Stephanie set up for the pedigree after taking out The Rock. But Vince comes down, wallops Triple H from behind with the sledgehammer. Triple H is down. Vince tosses him to the outside. Lita is shocked. Steph, you know, throws her into The Rock, who hits the rock bottom, then the people's elbow on Lita. Then Stephanie goes up top, hits probably sloppy as hell moonsault, and gets the 1, 2, 3 to send Lita out of the WWF. I forget. WF, I guess it's still. And like I said, this gets a 78. Let me see, was there anything else out of curiosity that hurt it other than what you expect? Rock was penalized for being rusty, inconsistency, inexperience for Shane McMahon, mayhem. Yeah, okay. I mean, yeah, what do you expect? But I imagine, like, this would be a very, like, well-beloved, like, sort of highlight of the era match, despite the rating. And then post-match, of course, Vince, Steph, Rock, and Big Show all celebrate to an 81. Fun times. Then we have a tag title 4-way, which gets as much build as a tag title match usually gets on these era of WrestleMania shows. So in a decent match, Bump and Grind, which is Rikishi and Val Venis, defeated Kwik and Sexy, which is Kwik and Grandmaster Sexy. Outkasts, who are our incoming tag champs of Tommy Dreamer Rhino, and Billy Gunn and Christian, who are part of Team Angle. When Val Venis pins Kwik, but it says with Pile Driver, but I'll just say it's a money shot. Bump and Grind win the tag titles. This gets a 73 overall. Val gets a 60. Rikishi gets a 58, Kwik gets a 61, Sexy gets a 52, Rhino gets a 71, Tommy Dreamer gets a 68, Christian gets an 80, and Billy Gunn gets a 69. And yeah, Bump Grind win the tag titles. And post-match, they celebrate with some ladies, which is just 2 of our lower card women, to a 56. Fun times and just a breather before the big 3 finishing matches. And then, but before that, we have a quick segment where basically, you know, Lita's like, no, you can talk, you know, Lita's like, you know, you can talk to people, you can get this done. And Triple H says, yes, of course, baby, we can totally get this done. Before finally, she pushes her out the door, locks the door, and walks away. Because, of course, he's a heel, and he's going to be an asshole to the end. And that's the end of Lita on WWF TV for the moment. This gets a 69. Okay, now it's time for the first of what I would actually consider like 3 main events. I mean, the Big Bang Family War would probably be a main event as well, but the first of the big 3 main events, as it's Edge versus Shawn Michaels. So set up for this is Lesnar beat Michaels at Survivor Series and No Way Out being a cell match. And then Edge came back after being gone for a couple months. It wasn't an injury. The game's just sometimes weird how they book some people, like they haven't used him in a couple months. So he returned basically call Michaels, saying it's time for, you know, men like him now, not Michaels, who's, you know, two WWF heavyweight title shots. You know, Michaels says he's still Mr. WrestleMania, and there you go. Like, pretty simple, you know, basically, you know, the quote-unquote past versus the present, or present versus the future, depending how you book it, and Mr. WrestleMania versus Edge, who has been a really hot heel for the past couple years. So first up, we have HBK doing his entrance. If it's like, it's probably quite a slight ripoff of the actual WrestleMania 20 entrance, or maybe his WrestleMania entrance where he did zipline if possible. I don't know. Regardless, like, you know, Michaels comes in, gets a big pop. It's a 70, and then it's time for the match itself. Which, okay, great. Good stuff. Okay, so in about had that sensational wrestling and fantastic heat, Edge defeated Shawn Michaels in 2018 by pinfall. It says with a missile dropkick. I should have changed it. It's a spear. It gets an 87. Edge gets a 93. Michaels gets a 97. Basically, this is your classic WB epic style match. I even booked it as an epic itself. And if we look real quick, let's see here. Yeah, only thing was poor color commentary, and Yeah, bonus for Patterson. So yeah, amazing babyface. Good psychology. Yeah. So that was the only thing that really hurt it. So oh well. Regardless, back at Epic. Michaels hits super kick. Edge really kicks out. Edge doesn't hit the spear, but he hits the Edge-o-matic. He locks in. I would even say for heat, he locks in the sharpshooter, but Michaels gets out. Edge fights back. Michaels fights back, but eventually Shawn looks like he's going to tune up the band one more time, but Edge drills him with a spear. 1, 2, 3. After 30 minutes, huge win. As Edge has defeated Mr. WrestleMania at WrestleMania in Madison Square Garden. As this gets an 87, like I said, and post-match Edge celebrating gets a 71. So now it's time for the semi-main event for the WWF Heavyweight Championship. The video itself gets an 81. As basically, it's a throwback first to, Lesnar winning the world title at SummerSlam, beating Kane and Big Show, and just his wreck of destruction since then. Winning a 4-way involving Triple H, Jericho, defeating Michaels at Survivor Series, just destroying people there's a voiceover of Jim Cornette's promo, calling him the most destructive force in WWE history, calling him the Beast Incarnate, calling him the end for every WWE superstar who stands in front of the Beast, the next big thing, the baddest man on the planet, the most destructive force in WWE history. And then it's a quick cut to Royal Rumble 4, where it looked like Austin might actually have a chance to beat him for the title, but Cornette actually throws the title belt in. Austin tries to use it, but Lesnar, that's enough of a gap for Lesnar to grab him, and F5 on the title to keep the title. So then we cut to where basically Austin goads Lesnar to giving him the title shot at Mania after Angle gave it up after winning the Rumble for reasons I'll get into the main event. And then Cornette, basically, says, Cornette basically then cuts promo saying Austin has to accept that the Attitude Era is over, Stone Cold's time is over. Every day it gets a little harder to get up in the morning, the knees are a little creakier, the back hurts, the neck hurts, every bit of bone hurts. Well, this man, he points over to Lesnar, none of it hurts. He is built to destroy. He is the prototype of a WWE athlete, of the world champion, of the man who will end Stone Cold's career. Austin, you shouldn't show up. But if you will, we're not responsible for what happens. Because Stone Cold, your time is over. It's Brock's time. As this gets an 81. Austin's likely his final WrestleMania entrance. Because, again, in-game, he's really, his physical health on everything is just tanking. As he gets a 74, then it's time for the match itself, which gets a 87. Okay, great, good stuff. God, I should. Taz and Heyman not being bad on the announce this is going to kill this. Anyway, in an exceptional match, Brock Lesnar defeats Steve Austin. It says by overhead ability, but we know it's the F5. In 13:31 by pinfall with the F5, Lesnar makes defense number 7 of the World Heavyweight title. This gets an 87, like I said. Lesnar gets a 90. Austin gets a 97 because he's still really good. And, this is, it's not quite Lesnar Cena from real life, but it's almost there. Austin fights back a little bit. He actually it's a little bit of advantage with brawling, because Lesnar is a monster of a man, but he's not used to just straight old ballroom brawling. But eventually Lesnar just grabs him and tosses him. And the big sort of, I don't want to say finish of the match. Basically, Austin gets House of Fire. He hits the Thieves Luthez press. He hits the punches. Lesnar looks a little steady. Austin actually hits a stunner, but he hits it. But Lesnar basically backs up, bounces off the ropes, almost no-selling it, and just destroys Austin with a lariat. And from there, that's all she wrote. It's a couple minutes later. Austin tries to fight back, but boot, kick, wham, F5, 1, 2, 3, right in the middle of the ring. Lesnar ends Austin basically, as this gets an 87. And post-match, Lesnar celebrates with Cornette to a 71. Now it's time for the main event video, as it's Angle versus Taker, which gets an 84. And basically this is set up by Angle actually, after losing the title at SummerSlam, he gets even more sort of aggressive and intense, even pissing off his former Team Angle members. He defeats Taker at Armageddon, basically, via sort of like basically 50% clean. Like he gets the pinfall victory in the middle of the ring, but like after lots of BS. Taker, okay, in game he didn't disappear, but we're saying he basically disappeared after this. Angle, wins the Rumble, but, says, after there's some little tension between him and Lesnar, says that as the only gold medalist winner in WWE history, he's the man who can end the streak because he already beat him once and he can beat him again. And then, we get the usual, bong, set up stuff. And Angle's like, I'm not scared of him. Like, why should I be scared of him? Because, and eventually Paul Bearer, instead of making his return, like, at Mania, Paul Bearer makes his return, basically says, Taker will be there. And the true Undertaker will return. Because remember, we've had, American Badass Taker for the past couple of years. Angle sort of laughs him off. Because, of course, that's been the Taker, Angle's dealt with is sort of the more realistic Taker. But eventually, at the last SmackDown, Angle did a funeral for the Undertaker, and the lights went out, and when came back on, instead of an Undertaker wax dummy being in the casket, it was a Kurt Angle wax dummy. And so that's a setup. It's Angle, it's Taker, it's the main event of WrestleMania, it's this Reek versus the gold medalist. So let's get rolling. And if you want some proof, I'm not a perfect booker, which I'm sure there shouldn't be that much, thought anyway. Well, that should be Paul Bearer. Like, I mean, this should be basically the actual WrestleMania real, return. I mean, just look that up. It's on YouTube. Put that in there. It gets a 99, just like it got in real life. And okay, yeah, the dead man is back. And now it's time for the actual match. So just pretend that was Paul Bearer there, not Pat Patterson. Actual match. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Okay. Let me see here. What hurt this? Low heat, lack of association. Okay, I should have had another. Well, not the end of the world or anything. So about that, sensational wrestling, fantastic heat. The Undertaker defeated Kurt Angle in 22:31 by pinfall. It says with a choke slam, but let's be honest, it would have ended with a tombstone. This gets a 79, which is unfortunate. Taker got a 93, Angle got a 98. So let's just pretend this is just the show. The crowd is burnt out. Like that's basically what happened here. Like it's a really good match, back and forth. Angle, basically Angle locked in the ankle lock, but Taker basically no sells it. Taker fights back, and Angle goes for the Angle slam, but Taker eventually gets advantage. Choke slam, last ride, tombstone. Like Taker, like Angle fights out of one, but eventually it's over. Taker gets the 1-2-3 right in the middle of the ring. So this gets a 79. And of course, Taker basically bows, kneels like he does always just for the fans to end the show to an 81. And overall, we get a 91. Okay, so good stuff. Good stuff. So let's give it to Taker, Steve Austin in his final performance, probably, and was actually better than I expected. Honestly, yeah, Shawn Michaels. And I'll be back in a second just with the post-show stuff and sort of go over what I'm going to do for the AI for the rest of the year for them. So just to review, to go over the mail. They got all the buys. So just to sort of like go over things, what I'm going to do is, yeah, I'm going to first like pay off some people. So Teddy Long, you get your Mania payday. Oh, that's there you go. Who else is upset? Okay, Terry. Well, actually, let me just do this. Yeah, who else is upset? I mean, Kane has some morale issues, but like I'll fix him in a second. So here, so what we're going to do is everyone. It's go, and it gets rid of everybody morale issues. Angle. Why is Angle annoyed? Oh, right. I mean, here. In real life, Kurt Angle would not be annoyed about putting over Taker. So that's just silliness. Because, yeah, okay, intense creative, right? Okay. See, that just seems. Nobody is going to be pissed at putting over Taker at Mania. And, let me look at the personality. I mean, all right, so let's just take over some. Okay, first, The Rock. The Rock, you get a year off. Uh, I could have sworn we could do a year off here. We're giving Lita 3 months off. For the sake of storyline, we're giving Farouk a month off. Let's see here. Who else makes sense? All right, we're giving Kane. There we go, 5 months off for Kane. Let's see here. And again, to sell things, Austin also gets 3 months off. And yeah, Lesnar is just stupidly over now. Yeah, like he's now basically the guy. Let me see. Is Leviathan actually finally over? After everything I've done in game to get him over. Survey says not really. Okay, interesting. Let's look at Randy Orton. So Orton's actually now solidly over. Edge, let's see here. Edge is also like super duper over. Yeah, Edge is, yeah. Shawn Michaels, let's see here. Slightly less over. And Taker is, yeah. Fun times. Was there anybody else who I really cared about who I booked? Not really. Yeah. I mean, Triple H is still oddly over for a guy. Also, get rid of Lita as his manager. I think, let's see your stables. Right, I already, okay, yeah. Make inactive. And I think the only other thing I wanted to do here, right, teams. So APA are now an inactive unit. I think that was it as far as changes for this stuff. Oh, right, and then I want to do developmental real quick. Okay, so uh, so they actually like this is like mostly the like yeah, this is mostly the game. Like I've not done my own like, and it's some very interesting people like they sort of built up randomly. So like for example, they hired Shelton, they hired Tony Mamaluke, they hired Scott Vick, they hired I think they hired Sarah Stock, they hired of all people Ricky Shane Page, Mafia. So yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a quick check um, of first people who are in each WA. So So Charlie Haas is over enough that I think he needs to basically be up to OVW, but he's currently their champion, so I'm not going to do that. But other people who are close there, so we got Danny Doring, who's almost as over. So since, like, what I'm going to do is anybody Great Lakes over 40. Charlie Haas, Chemo, Mitch Page, ironically, Ray Steele, and Spanky. So, Mitch Page and Spanky. And then we'll go over here. Mitch Page, send away to OVW. And we'll send Spanky off to OVW because he's basically graduated. We'll set up again. We'll go back to child companies, roster, prepare to recall, and prepare to recall. Oh no, he's with OVW. So then if we look at the OVW roster, again, like if we look at where are they located? I always forget. It is in the right. It's also in the Great Lakes. Even it should really be in the Mid South, but I'm not going to fix that because why not? So anyway, same thing, Mid South. So Great Lakes. So yeah, 40. Okay, so that's basically almost everybody. So Great Lakes 60. That narrows. Okay, so that's nobody. But who's almost there? Okay, not up to people, but who's over 50? Okay, so Punk, who they hired a while ago. I'd have to go back and check how long ago. Cody Hawk, who's interesting. Josh Mantel, Homicide and Justice, who were signed a while by though. Kara Slice, who's a diva. Linda Miles, Chris Lita, Lizzie Borden. Rico Constantino, and Ryan Shamrock. So, what I'm going to do is let's go ahead, just because I'm interested in how the game would treat them, is I'm going to recall them up to the main roster. And I'm also going to bring up okay. So she's actually currently no, she's yeah. So I'm going to bring only because she's not the current Divas champion, so I'll bring up Kara Slice up the main roster. And we'll go ahead and I hate the two name things, the one name thing. So Trey Slice, and yeah, for now I'll just have her work as a wrestler and see how she gets pushed. So I think that's about it. Yeah. So again, we'll see how the AI books everything from now on, but that'll be it for me. I'll sign out of the game as this player, and then I'll be back with just WCW, and I'll see how W finangles with my booking. I hope you enjoyed this. As always, this is one of my more wackier and interesting booking things that I enjoy doing. So if you enjoyed it, go ahead and give it a like, comment below what you're liking and not liking, and subscribe to the channel for lots of TEW20 content, including this series, which is now heading towards Sacrifice for WCW. My WCW 1994 series, which is now going to have Spring Stampede up next. My WWE 2013 series, where I have a random number generator giving me goals, including pushing people like Darren Young and not pushing people like Seth Rollins. And of course, my MLW 2006 series, now with Fusion, with people like Takeshi Morishima and The Amazing Red and Low Ki in the main event. But that's it for now, so talk to you later, and adios, and have a good one.